We're here at the Teacher Educator Conference in Hyderabad, and I have with me Dr. Richard Smith from the University of Warwick. Welcome, Richard. You've just given a talk this morning, and we'd just like to ask you a few questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you for giving the time. The first question, could you give us an idea briefly of your interpretation of the theme? I mean, the theme of the conference is innovation in English language teacher education. How would you describe its relevance to the current teacher education scenario in India and across the globe?
Well, there are obviously great demands for English everywhere in the world, in India, and teacher education is needed. There are more teachers are needed. That's one area of change that is necessary, obviously, especially in primary. And existing teacher education setups generally have problems of sort of theory being emphasized in teacher education, and then teachers arrive in context and they can't put it into practice. This is one area I think that needs change. Mm-hmm. I just say that for me, innovation isn't good in itself. I think we need to think of improvement. I think with these great demands there are obvious solutions. Apparent solutions are often technological. For example, reaching many teachers through mobile phone technology, and that is a wonderful tool. But or for example, cascading. There are some great projects going on in India of cascading examples where you train a group of teachers and they train other teachers. I really think we have to think about the contents of training. Are the contents appropriate? And also I think we need to build from the bottom up, and in terms of seeing what's going on and not necessarily thinking that everything is wrong. And for example, here in India, this conference is co-organised by EFL University. That has a long tradition of teacher education, going back 40, 50 years. People like Prabhu came through here, well-known figures, Tiku, Kumaravati Velu, for example. Mm-hmm. We need to look at the strengths that are here, this is what needs to be done generally in the world. Seeing what's being done well, and building on that, and not just introducing change for the sake of it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Could you summarise your approach to teacher development and outline how focusing on strengths, this is the theme of your talk, focusing on strength of working in difficult contexts can help teacher development?
Yeah, my approach, I'm involved in teacher education mainly with my own students at Warwick University. Especially I'm with students who haven't had experience of teaching. But I think what I was talking about more today was, and therefore what we have to do is build on the experience that they bring with them as learners. And the general approach to teacher education that I would advocate is building on the experiences that people bring with them to the training situation, and that goes for more the kind of in-service work that I was describing today, where I've been working with teachers in Chile, Nepal, for example, a little bit in Cameroon. These are practicing teachers, and obviously I can't go into these contexts and tell them. Well, it's obvious to me that I can't go there and tell them how they should be teaching. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's very important that we recognise the quite difficult circumstances that they are working in. Large classes, often lack of resources, even lack of textbooks. I say large classes in Cameroon, for example. 100 in a school, in a primary or secondary school is quite normal. Wow. So these are normal circumstances for these teachers, and ideas, communicative language teaching ideas, for example, task-based language teaching. Yes, there are things which are useful for them, but it's not necessarily appropriate, and this is the big complaint about teacher education, that it's often inappropriate. Mm. Well, basically, I'm advocating that we need to take account of this fact and not always think of what people do in these situations as all wrong, but look for success among the teachers in these contexts and build on that, and maybe arrange things so that we can have a sharing experience where teachers are talking to one another about the successes that they have had, mm-hmm. and not always demonizing the way they teach.
Okay. Thank you. Why do you think a lot of the approaches to teacher development deal mainly with the constraints of working in difficult contexts rather than the benefits?
Yeah, I think what I'm saying is really that teacher education doesn't actually take account of the constraints in which teachers are working. Teacher education in many contexts does tend to focus on ideal scenarios, how people should be teaching, and not enough on the experiences that they are bringing to the classroom. I think that's what I'm saying. In fact, I think if we can in teacher education develop teachers' ability to address the constraints, to actually feel empowered within that context, and not to be thoroughly demotivated by the fact that they can't put ideas that they hear about into practice, which is a very demotivating experience. I think it's important to help teachers to see that there are, what a friend of mine, colleague in Portugal, Flavia Vieira, who's a great teacher educator, says, which is we need to find. There are always spaces of freedom within any context. Things might seem very, very impossible to change, but there are always small areas, and to help teachers to find those areas, I think, is important. In that sense, to help teachers to deal with constraints and to feel empowered is I think what we need, and that's easier said than done. But I did present some ways that teachers can share experiences, can feel that they have knowledge to share, and that they are not they can, in a sense, that they are the experts about their own context, which is true. Nobody knows their own context like a teacher does.
Just kind of finding your own path a little bit and identifying where you find things that work and sharing those.
Yeah. And there are cases of what we could call good practice, which we might not identify as up-to-date methodological practice, but I think it's really interesting and important to research those cases, to find those cases, and to identify what those teachers are doing, to share with other teachers.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, thank you. Thinking of the future, what theme would you like us to explore in next year's Teacher Educator Conference?
I'm sure it's already been decided, so I don't have much influence, but based on what I've been saying, I suppose ideas like around, for example, success, even appropriateness, if that hasn't been explored before, what is appropriate teacher education in context. And of course, we are in India, and this context of India is so diverse. I think diversity has been a theme already. I'm not sure that would be another one. Multilingualism in India, this is extremely important, and there are many areas I think which are appropriate to this context, South Asia context, which are around diversity, multilingualism, difficult circumstances, although and also around teacher learning, teachers' autonomy, teachers' ability to take control of their learning. Okay. These are areas I'm interested in, that I think could be appropriate.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Richard.
My pleasure.
Thank you.